All right, well, this particular session of adult story time, it was a little heavy last week, wasn't it? Got a little choked up a couple of times. So it was a fabulous conversation. We had a really good time. So I thought I would begin with a really short, just comedic one, something that's funny. Keep it a little light in the beginning, but I warn you, the second story is a Hemingway, and it's fabulous, and it's one of my favorites, but it's a little heavy, so that's why I thought maybe we'll start with something a little funny to help us out. I don't know, are there any folks that watched Looney Tunes growing up? Any Looney Tunes lovers? Bugs Bunny, yeah, Elmer Fudd. All right, this one is actually, if you'll listen carefully, it is part of Looney Tunes, and see if you can figure out who it is. In the United States District Court, Southwestern District, Tempe, Arizona, case number B19294, Judge Joanne Kujava presiding, Wile Coyote plaintiff versus Acme Company defendant. Opening statement of Mr. Harold Schaff, attorney of Mr. Coyote. My client, Mr. Wile E. Coyote, a resident of Arizona and contiguous states, does hereby bring suit for damages against the Acme Company, manufacturer and retail distributor of assorted merchandise, incorporated in Delaware and doing business in every state, district, and territory. Mr. Coyote seeks compensation for personal injuries, loss of business income, and mental suffering caused as a direct result of the actions and or gross negligence of said company under Title 15 of the United States Code, Chapter 47, Section 2072, subsection relating to product liability. Mr. Coyote states that on 85 separate occasions he has purchased of the Acme Company, hereinafter defendant, through that company's mail order department certain products which did cause him bodily injury due to defects in manufacture or improper cautionary labeling. Sales slips made out to Mr. Coyote as proof of purchase are at present in the possession of the court, marked Exhibit A. Such injuries sustained by Mr. Coyote have temporarily restricted his ability to make a living in his profession of predator. Mr. Coyote is self-employed and thus not eligible for workman's compensation. Mr. Coyote states that on December 13th, he received a defendant via parcel, Post 1 Acme rocket sled. The intention of Mr. Coyote was to use the rocket sled to aid him in pursuit of his prey. Upon receipt of the rocket sled, Mr. Coyote removed it from its wooden shipping crate and, sighting his prey in the distance, activated the ignition. As Mr. Coyote gripped the handlebars, the rocket sled accelerated with such sudden and precipitate force as to stretch Mr. Coyote's forelimbs to a length of 50 feet. Subsequently, the rest of Mr. Coyote's body shot forward with a violent jolt, causing severe strain to his back and neck and placing him unexpectedly astride the rocket sled. Disappearing over the horizon at such speed as to leave a diminishing jet trail along its path, the rocket sled soon brought Mr. Coyote abreast of his prey. At that moment, the prey he was pursuing veered sharply to the right. Mr. Coyote vigorously attempted to follow this maneuver, but was unable to, due to poorly designed steering on the rocket sled and a faulty or non-existent braking system. Shortly thereafter, the unchecked progress of the rocket sled brought it and Mr. Coyote into collision with the side of a mesa. Paragraph 1 of the report of attending physician, Exhibit B, prepared by Dr. Ernest Grosscup, MD, DO, details the multiple fractures, contusions, and tissue damage suffered by Mr. Coyote as a result of his collision. Repair of the injuries required: a full body bandage, one around the head, excluding the ears, a neck brace, and a full or partial cast on all four legs. Hampered by these injuries, Mr. Coyote was nevertheless obliged to support himself, and with this in mind, he purchased of the defendant as an aid to mobility one pair of Acme rocket skates. When he attempted to use this product, however, he became involved in an accident remarkably similar to that which occurred with the rocket sled. Again, defendant sold over the counter, without caveat, a product which attached powerful jet engines, in this case two, to inadequate vehicles with little or no provision for passenger safety. Encumbered by his heavy cast, Mr. Coyote lost control of the rocket skates soon after strapping them on and collided with a roadside billboard so violently as to leave a hole in the shape of his full silhouette. Mr. Coyote states that on occasion, too numerous to list in this document, he has suffered mishaps with explosives purchased of the defendant. The Acme Little Giant firecracker, the Acme self-guided aerial bomb, etc. For a full listing, see the Acme Mail Order Explosives Catalog and attached deposition entered in evidence as Exhibit C. Indeed, it is safe to say that not once has an explosive purchased of the defendant by Mr. Coyote performed in an expected manner. To cite just one example, at the expense of much time and personal effort, Mr. Coyote constructed around the outer rim of a butte a wooden trough, beginning at the top of the butte and spiraling downward around it to some few feet above a black X painted on the desert floor. The trough was designed in such a way that a spherical explosive of the type sold by the defendant would roll easily and swiftly down to the point of detonation indicated by the X. Mr. Coyote placed a generous pile of birdseed directly on the X, and then carrying the spherical Acme bomb, catalog number 78-832, climbed to the top of the butte. Mr. Coyote's prey, seeing the birdseed, approached, and Mr. Coyote proceeded to light the fuse. In an instant, the fuse burned down to the stem, causing the bomb to detonate. In addition to reducing all Mr. Coyote's careful preparations to naught, the premature detonation of defendant's product resulted in the following disfigurements to Mr. Coyote: severe singeing of the hair on the head, neck, and muzzle, sooty discoloration, fracture of the left ear at the stem causing the ear to dangle in the aftershock with a creaking noise, full or partial combustion of whiskers, producing kinking, frazzling, and ashy disintegration. Radical widening of the eyes due to the brow and lid charring. We come now to the Acme spring-powered shoes. The remains of a pair of these purchased by Mr. Coyote on June 23rd are Plaintiff's Exhibit D. Selected fragments have been shipped to the metallurgical laboratories of the University of California at Santa Barbara for analysis, but to date no explanation has been found for this product's sudden and extreme malfunction. As advertised by defendant, this product is simplicity itself: 2 wood and metal sandals, each attached to milled steel springs of high tensile strength and compressed in a tightly coiled position by a caulking device with a lanyard release. Mr. Coyote believed that this product would enable him to pounce upon his prey in the initial moments of the chase. Then swift reflexes are at a premium. To increase the shoe's thrusting power still further, Mr. Coyote affixed them by their bottoms to the side of a large boulder. Adjacent to the boulder was a path where Mr. Coyote's prey was known to frequent. Mr. Coyote put his hind feet in the wood and metal sandals and crouched in readiness, his right forepaw holding firmly to the lanyard release. Within a short time, Mr. Coyote's prey did indeed appear on the path coming toward him. Unsuspecting, the prey stopped near Mr. Coyote, well within range of the springs at full extension. Mr. Coyote gauged the distance with care and proceeded to pull the lanyard release. At this point, defendant's product should have thrust Mr. Coyote forward and away from the boulder. Instead, for reasons yet unknown, the Acme spring-powered shoes thrust the boulder away from Mr. Coyote as the intended prey looked on unharmed. Mr. Coyote hung suspended in the air. Then the twin springs recoiled, bringing Mr. Coyote to a violent feet-first collision with the boulder, and the full weight of his head and forequarters falling upon his lower extremities. The force of this impact then caused the springs to rebound, whereupon Mr. Coyote was thrust skyward. A second recoil and collision followed. The boulder, meanwhile, which was roughly ovoid in shape, had begun to bounce down a hillside, the coiling and recoiling of the springs adding to its velocity. At each bounce, Mr. Coyote came into contact with the boulder, or the boulder came into contact with Mr. Coyote, or both came into contact with the ground. And as the grade was a long one, this process continued for some time. The sequence of collisions resulted in systemic physical damage to Mr. Coyote, flattening of the cranium, sideways displacement of the tongue, reduction of length of legs and upper body, and compression of vertebrae from base of tail to head. Repetition of blows along a vertical axis produced a series of regular horizontal folds in Mr. Coyote's body tissues, a rare and painful condition which caused Mr. Coyote to expand upward and contract downward alternately as he walked, and to emit an off-key accordion-like wheezing with every step. The distracting and embarrassing nature of this symptom has been a major impediment to Mr. Coyote's pursuit of a normal social life. And as the court is no doubt aware, defendant has a virtual monopoly of manufacture and sale of goods required by Mr. Coyote's work. It is our contention that the defendant has used its market advantage to the detriment of the customer of such specialized products as itching powder, giant kites, Burmese tiger traps, anvils, and 200-foot-long rubber bands. Much as he has come to mistrust defendant's products, Mr. Coyote has no other domestic source of supply to which to turn. One can only wonder what our trading partners in Western Europe and Japan would make of such a situation where a giant company is allowed to victimize the consumer in the most reckless and wrongful manner over and over again. Mr. Coyote respectfully requests that the court regard these larger economic implications and assess punitive damages in the amount of $17 million. In addition, Mr. Coyote seeks actual damages, missed meals, medical expenses, days lost from his professional occupation of $1 million, general damages, mental suffering, injury of reputation, to $20 million, and an attorney's fees of $750,000. Total damages, $38,750,000. And by awarding Mr. Coyote the full amount, this court will ensure the defendant is directors, officers, shareholders, successors, and assigns in the only language they understand and reaffirm the right of the individual creditor to equal protection under the law. So that was my funny one. Yeah. Again, a clean, well-lighted place by Ernest Hemingway. It was very late, and everyone had left the cafe except an old man who sat in the shadow the leaves of the tree made against the electric light. In the daytime, the street was dusty. But at night, the dew settled the dust, and the old man liked to sit late because he was deaf, and now at night it was quiet, and he felt the difference. The two waiters inside the cafe knew that the old man was a little drunk, and while he was a good client, they knew that if he became too drunk, he would leave without paying, so they kept watch on him. "Last week he tried to commit suicide," one waiter said. "Why?" "Well, he was in despair." "What about?" "Nothing." "How do you know it was nothing?" "Because he has plenty of money." They sat together at a table that was close against the wall near the door of the cafe and looked at the terrace where the tables were all empty except where the old man sat in the shadow of the leaves of the tree that moved slightly in the wind. A girl and a soldier went by in the street, and the street light shone on the brass number on his collar. The girl wore no head covering and hurried beside him. "Well, the guard will pick him up," one waiter said. "What does it matter if he gets what he's after? He had better get off the street now. The guard will get him. Then they went by 5 minutes ago." The old man sitting in the shadow rapped on his saucer with his glass, and the younger waiter went over to him. "What do you want?" The old man looked at him. "Another brandy," he said. "You'll be drunk," the waiter said. The old man looked at him, and the waiter went away. "He'll stay all night," he said to his colleague, "and I'm sleepy now. I never get into bed before 3 o'clock. He should have killed himself last week." Well, the waiter took the brandy bottle and another saucer from the counter inside the cafe and marched out to the old man's table. He put down the saucer. He poured the glass full of brandy. "You should have killed yourself last week," he said to the deaf man. The old man motioned with his finger. "A little more," he said, and the waiter poured on into the glass so that the brandy slopped over and ran down the stem into the top saucer of the pile. "Thank you," the old man said, and the waiter took the bottle back inside the cafe. He sat down at the table with his colleague again. "Well, he's drunk now," he said. "He's drunk every night." What want to kill himself for? How should I know? How'd he do it? Well, he hung himself with a rope. Who cut him down? His niece. Why'd they do it? Fear for his soul. Well, how much money has he got? Well, he's got plenty. Well, he must be 80 years old. Anyway, I should say he was 80. I wish he would go home. I never get to bed before 3 o'clock. What kind of hour is that to go to bed? He stays up because he likes it. He's lonely. I'm not lonely. I have a wife waiting in bed for me. He had a wife once, too. A wife would be no good to him now. Well, you can't tell. He might be better with a wife. His niece looks after him. You said she cut him down. I know. I wouldn't want to be that old. An old man is a nasty thing. Not always. This old man, he's clean. He's drinking without spilling even now. Drunk. Look at him. I don't want to look at him. I wish he'd go home. He has no regard for those who must work. The old man looked from his glass across the square and then over at the waiters. Another brandy, he said, pointing to his glass. And the waiter, who was in a hurry, came over. Finished, he said, speaking with that omission of syntax stupid people employ when talking to drunken people or foreigners. No more tonight. Close, now. Another, said the old man. No, finished. The waiter wiped the edge of the table with a towel and shook his head. The old man stood up, slowly counted the saucers, took a leather coin purse from his pocket, paid for the drinks, leaving him a peseta tip. The waiter watched him go down the street, a very old man walking unsteadily but with dignity. Why didn't you let him stay and drink, the unhurried waiter said. They were putting up the shutters. It's not 2:30. I want to go home to bed. What's an hour? More to me than to him. An hour is the same. You talk like an old man yourself. He can buy a bottle and drink it at home. It's not the same. No, it is not, agreed the waiter with the wife. He did not wish to be unjust. He was only in a hurry. And you? You have no fear of going home before your usual hour. Are you trying to insult me? No, hombre, only making a joke. No, the waiter, who was in a hurry, said, rising from pulling down the metal shutters. I have confidence. I am all confidence. You have youth, confidence, and a job, said the older waiter. You have everything. And what do you lack? Everything but work. Oh, you have everything I have. No, I have never had confidence, and I am not young. Oh, come on, stop talking nonsense and lock up. I am of those who like to stay late at the cafe, the older waiter said, with all those who do not want to go to bed, with all those who need a light for the night. I want to go home and into bed. We are of two different kinds, the older waiter said. He was now dressed to go home. It's not only a question of youth and confidence, although those things are very beautiful. Each night I am reluctant to close up because there may be someone who needs the cafe. Hombre, there are bodegas open all night long. You do not understand. This is a clean and pleasant cafe. It is well lighted. The light is very good, and also now there are shadows of the leaves. Good night, said the young waiter. Good night, the other said. Turning off the electric light, he continued the conversation with himself. It was the light, of course, but it is necessary that the place be clean and pleasant. You do not want music. Certainly you do not want provided for these for hours. Certainly you do not want music, nor can you stand before a bar with dignity, although that is all that is provided for these hours. What did he fear? It was not a fear or dread. It was a nothing that he knew too well. It was all a nothing, and a man was nothing too. It was only that, and light was all it needed, and a certain cleanliness and order. Some lived in it and never felt it, but he knew it was all nada. Y pues nada, y nada pues nada. Our nada who art in nada. Nada be thy name, thy kingdom nada, thy will be nada, and nada as it is in nada. Give us this nada, our daily nada, and nada us our nada as we nada our nadas, and nada us not in a nada, but deliver us from nada. Pues nada. Hail nothing full of nothing, nothing is with thee. He smiled and stood before a bar with a shining steam pressure coffee machine. What's yours? Asked the barman. Nada. Otro loco más, said the barman and turned away. A little cup, said the waiter. The barman poured it for him. The light is very bright and pleasant. But the bar is unpolished, the waiter said. The barman looked at him but did not answer. It was too late at night for conversation. You want another copita? The barman asked. No, thank you, said the waiter and went out. He disliked bars and bodegas. A clean, well-lighted cafe was a very different thing. Now, without thinking further, he would go home to his room. He would lie in the bed, and finally, with daylight, he would go to sleep. After all, he said to himself, it's probably only insomnia. Many must have it. The end.